Today we're looking at a 2005 Mazda 3 5-speed. And we're going to take a look at what's underneath this shiny blue hood. But to do that, we need to go inside the car and use the hood release handle, which is on the left-hand side of the steering wheel underneath the dash. And you just pull that towards you. Walk to the front of the car, and you're going to look for the hood latch. And this is an X-ray version of it. And you'll see you'll have to press down to your left towards the passenger side in order for it to release. We can see here the cable latch, which needs to be oiled periodically so it doesn't bind. So again, we push to our left towards the passenger side, and then the hood should come right up as you lift, because there's no support, there are no springs to hold the roof up. So then you look for the support rod, which should be clipped in. And you just pull it towards the engine and then lift up. And then in the hood, there is a place for the rod to insert, and that will hold your hood up so you can work in the engine compartment. In the engine compartment, we have the coolant reservoir on the left-hand side, passenger side, steering fluid, washer fluid, the AC, an oil dipstick, access to the spark plugs underneath the engine cover, the air filter, which is buried underneath the battery duct, fuse block, which gives you access to some but not all the fuses in the car. The rest are in the passenger compartment. The battery itself, and then finally the brake reservoir. So let's start off with the coolant. Coolant is nice because you can see how much or how little fluid you have. It's a translucent case. And what I do is I always write down when I've changed it. So in this car, we recently changed it in January of 2017. And I wrote down the brand just so that I know. Right in front of it is the washer fluid reservoir and the power steering reservoir. So in order to check your washer fluid, you hold a little center hole, you cover that, and then lift up this very long tube, and you'll see somewhere an indication of how much fluid there is. If I take my finger off the little hole, then you see the fluid just drips right back in. In the wintertime, you'll want to use something that has a little bit of antifreeze so that it doesn't freeze up on you. Power steering takes Dexron 3 or ATF M3. It has a max and a minimum level that you need to check. A little hard to do, but it's there. Then we move on to the AC high side. Just know it's there. You really shouldn't mess around with it. It can be quite dangerous because you're dealing with freon at high pressure. In front of that is the oil dipstick, and it's easy to use. You just pull it up, wipe it clean, reinsert, all the way down, and then remove it and check for the fluid level. Fluid should be fairly clean, and it should be between the max and the minimum marks on the dipstick. Once again, wipe it clean, reinsert until it seats. That's how you check your oil. Now, moving further down, we go across the battery duct, which is this piece that leads to the battery case. And that battery case is held by 3 tabs, one on either side and one in the front. This not only protects the battery, but also helps keep it cool. Now you'll notice your terminals should be clean, so I advise putting a little petroleum Vaseline jelly. Make sure clamps are on tight so the battery is not moving around. And check if there's a date of when you bought it to make sure that it's not going to run out at some time. Now to put the cover back on, you notice these tabs, there are holes in the case. Get those two to line up. Once you do that, it should be able just to snap in. Now next to the battery is the fuse block. And that has a little tab that you kind of lift out and up, revealing fuses mostly for engine compartment stuff. Now if you look at the inside of the cover, you'll notice a couple of things. There is a fuse remover along with some empty slots for putting in spare fuses, hint hint, and a map. It's upside down. There we go. A map of what all those fuses are for. Note there are additional fuses inside the passenger compartment. If you refer to your manual, it'll tell you where to find those. So again, we have some tabs here. You see them? They align with those little studs sticking out there. So make sure to align those carefully, and then it should just snap in. Moving on, we go to the brake reservoir. The brake fluid reservoir has a max and a min. Again, they're a little difficult to see. You can spin off the cap. This takes .3 fluid. Your brake fluid should be clear to a light amber. If it's dark or brownish, it's time to flush that fluid out and replace. Engine cover is held in place by 3 posts, and just pulling up gets them to release. It's a lot easier when you have 2 hands. There's a post, there's a post, and there's one in the front. And you'll notice there's some white stuff on the engine. That's from the back side of the engine cover. This blanket here is starting to deteriorate. After all, the car is pretty old. So I'm just going to wipe a little bit of that off. If I had some compressed air, you can also do that. We see that the engine takes 5W-20 engine oil. Make sure that's secured, not loose, because you don't want contaminants. These are the 4 ignition coils, and underneath them are the spark plugs. Here's a fuel injection rail, and below that are the intake manifolds, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next to the right of those is the throttle body, and to the right of that, and we can't see it unless we pop open this little door, which I've never quite figured out what it's for. There's a clip there. That's where the air filter is hidden. Well, geez, aren't you going to show me how to do that? I guess I will. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take off these 2 screws here, and we're going to have to pull the battery cover off again. So you just get a screwdriver. These are plastic screws, so they're going to be fairly easy to remove. And again, we're going to take off the battery cover. So we pull the 3 tabs, one on each side, one in the front. And now our battery duct should lift out. Oh, we got one more. It's not even a screw, it's a push pin is what I call it. You push from the bottom and it loosens up. So now this whole apparatus comes out, and now you have access to the battery case. It has 4 clips that hold it in place, and some are a little easier than others to get to. This one has a hose that's in the way, so you move the hose out of the way, and there's the clip back there. So now you still can't lift it off because we have some wires that are connected. So press down on the back of the clip and it should come out. There's also a sensor. You see the little blue tabs. Squeeze those, and you have to jiggle a little bit, but trust me, it will come out. Just don't force it. And we have one more sensor that we remove the cable to. And now the last thing we need to do is actually loosen the screw that holds the hose, the air hose, to the throttle body. And once we pull that back, this whole apparatus will open up, and underneath is the air filter. Check the air filter both on top and bottom, because the bottom is where the air actually comes in. And if it looks nice and white, then you're good. Otherwise, you'll need to replace the filter. Also, make sure to clean out the inside of that box if it's dusty or dirty. So we put the filter back in. Here's the throttle body. If you were going to clean that, this would be a great time to do it. I'm going to get some mass air flow solvent to clean out that little sensor in the top of the air box. You can see there, it looks like a little match head. And so what we want to do is just spray it from a distance. You don't want to hit it hard with the fluid. You just want to coat it and get it clean. Because remember, it's somewhat of a fragile little sensor there, so we don't want to damage it. So we spray it for a few seconds, and then we allow the fluid to dry, and then we go and replace it. Hook up the little snorkel there, seat it all the way onto the throttle body. Don't forget to tighten that screw. And then there's a clip in the front. There's a clip in the back, but there's also a hose. So we're going to have to deal with both of those things. Got the clip. Now I'm going to plug in this sensor. And you're going to have to play around with the little blue clip underneath it so that they catch and it seats. And you should hit it. Yeah, you should hear a click. And now I'm going to put that hose back. That's over that clip. And then we're going to plug in the electrical connectors on both our sensors. And these should all click. And then there's another clip on the other side of the air box. And now we have our battery duct, and you see there's a cut in it that lines up with the front of the car. So you want to make sure those things align so that when you're ready to drop it in,
Over to my side.
it all comes together nicely.
Keep rolling. Look down
See,
here.
it just slides in there. And you have to, if you put the battery cover back on, you're going to have to take it off so that you can get the duct inside, and then you close over it. And then we'll reattach our screws. Again, these are plastic, so you're not going to be able to tighten these really hard. It's just you get them down until they're seated. And finally, for our last screw, you push up the bottom so the cap rises up, and then you place it in the hole and just push down. No screwdriver necessary. On the engine, we have our 3 posts, which line up with the 3 holes on the engine cover. You can use the oil cap hole as a guide to help you line things up. Then you just kind of push down on them. And you should hear it seat. And wipe it off, make it look pretty. Finally, you get the support rod out, put it into its clip, make sure it's seated all the way across. There's nothing, no tools left inside the engine compartment. Then you gently bring down the hood and release. And that concludes our tour. If you found this useful or informative, give us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching.